Hello there, everybody. Sorry, I'm a little bit late. All right, let me get stuff set up here real quick. And we'll share our screen. Derek, did you have anything in particular today you needed to cover? Do you want to, if you want to do audio so I can hear you, that might be easier as opposed to type, but whatever works best for you, I'm cool with that as well. Okay, I will start sharing my screen here. Just a second. All right, I think I'm good to go. Okay, let me know if you can see my screen there. And John, you have a microphone? If not, chatting is fine too. Whatever works best for you. Okay, so one of the questions that John had for me was in regards to bringing in background files. So I'm just going to start a new document here. Okay. And I'm going to create a couple different shapes so that we can look at the way that this works. So we'll do that one, and I'll make a new shape. Click no, because I don't want to replace the existing one. And this time I'll do, say, a rooftop that is 24 by 48 on a 36-inch base. Something like that. Okay, so I've got two different stones here, two different sizes, right? And with the latest update, we've got the ability to, when we click the add background button, it's going to auto fit to either our selection, or if we have nothing selected, it's going to auto fit around everything. So we're just going to talk a little bit about how that works. So if I click on the button add background right now, what it will do is it will go and find the file that's called bk.cdr in our import folder, and it will bring it in, and it fits it inside. It makes it so that whatever objects we have on the screen or whatever we have selected get fit to this inside rectangle here. So you can see a dotted line that shows that inside rectangle. So in our template, that's what's happening, is it's fitting to that rectangle every time you push that button. So if I got rid of this and I selected this and hit the button, it's going to bring in a background file and resize it so that it's going to fit. And it's just fitting left to right. I believe, let's double check. I think it's fitting the best way it can fit. If we've got a stone that's taller than one that's wider, then it actually brings in a different file. So I'm going to go ahead and click on that again. And what you'll see this time is, because it's taller, it's bringing in a vertical version of this. And so it's bringing in bk_v.cdr and fitting to that. That way the proportions are a bit different. if we look at the size of this, or proportionally anyway, it's rotated 90 degrees from the way that this one is, which means that all the stuff on the bottom here needs to fit in a smaller space, and you've got more room there along the top. So if we open up those two files, I'm just going to go and find them here really quick. Just a minute here. They're going to be pulled in from the MemorialDESIGNER /import folder. So under your documents folder, and then MemorialDESIGNER, and then import, there's a bunch of files now with this latest update. I hope to be finishing these with something that's a little bit prettier, but for now they're just kind of placeholders. But the bk.cdr and bk_v.cdr, if we were to open these up, give me just a second, it opened up in the wrong version. I've got multiple versions of CorelDRAW open, so give me just a minute here. So if we open up that file and we hit V to go to the wireframe, this rectangle here that has no fill and no outline, that's why you don't see it. Over on the right hand side in the object stalker, it's named MD_safe zone. And so what it's doing is it's finding a rectangle that's named MD_safe zone and fitting inside that rectangle. So if you wanted the text of your approval, or whatever this text is here, if you want that to be a certain distance from where the stone is placed, then what you would do is you would change where this is. Okay, so if we change it and put it there, I'm just going to save it real quick to show you what happens. If you make any changes to this and overwrite the original, now if I grab this and hit that button again, it's going to bring it back in, but it's going to give us now more space because it's fitting inside that rectangle there. Because this is scaling though to fit around whatever this is, it's not a set figure. So if I were to come in here and measure, or draw a box or something from the bottom of that to, let's say, right there, that's 7 inches, right? But if I were to change the size of this stone at all, let's just say we did it to this instead, it's not necessarily going to be 7 inches. It should be, proportionally the same, but it's not going to be 7 inches. But the way that it's built, the way that this is built, is it's meant to be the same proportions as an 8.5 by 11 piece of paper. So if we had a landscape piece of paper, and I'm just going to hold shift and double click the rectangle tool here, and what that does is it creates a rectangle the size of your paper, or the size of your page. If I were to click on this button over here, the page border button, you'd see where that's at. So it's just making a rectangle the size of our page. So this is meant to scale, or be the same size basically as paper, a regular 8.5 by 11 sheet of paper. So if I put it right here, you can see it's too big, obviously, but if I scale it down, then it's going to be the same size as a sheet of paper. So that's how the templates that I build work, is that the very outside box that I create is proportionally the same as an 8.5 by 11 sheet of paper. And then I come in a little way with my MD safe zone and also with my text. And because of that, that also gives us a border around the edge for your printing margins. so that if you don't have a printer that prints edge to edge, you're going to have a margin there. And so I build it that way so that if you were to print it, if you go up to quick print here, quick print will shrink down to page size. And so if you've got this selected and you click on the quick print, it's going to shrink it down to the page size and print it out. So that way it should fit really nicely on your page. So that's how that functions, how that currently works. John, if you had any questions on that, let me know. But that's the current functionality. If you needed to bring it in, bring things in differently than that, you would just simply, instead of using the add background, you can import it using the import button and bring in your own, background files or templates or approvals or whatever the case may be. But as far as, so the question was if it's possible to make it so that this text here is always the same distance, a set distance from the bottom of your stone. And then also the second question was, when you print, how do you get it to fit appropriately? I use this quick print. So this quick print is actually our tool. We've replaced Corel's default print with our quick print, because what it does is it takes your selection, shrinks it down to page size, converts it to a bitmap, and then sends it to your default printer. Where if you were to do this manually, as far as printing goes, what you would need to do is you'd go up to File and you go to Print. And then once this pops up, you would choose your printer. And then you'd go to Layout and you'd say Fit to Page. And you would also want to come back, let's see, back on General and say Selection Only, like that. And then you would print it from there. So that's fitting, the same size, because once again, the dimension of my outside rectangle is the same proportion as a page. So that's why it works that way, to fit so well. If you wanted to click Print Preview, it gives you a little bit bigger preview of how it's going to look. And it looks like on this particular printer, my margins aren't really all that large, so I could probably go a little larger if I wanted to. But the main reason I don't use the print dialog is because it takes more time, and there's also a bug in CorelDRAW when you print things that have bitmap fills in them, that you get white lines or black lines streaking through them. And so by using the quick print, it seems to eliminate that for the most part. So I'm going to look real quick on the chat and see what we got. So it's a pack estimation. Okay, so the question is, would the background still resize if I made a similar setup of rectangles, or is it specifically dependent on something with that MD underscore safe zone object? So when the auto fit portion of the add background macro now, the auto fit portion of it is specifically looking for something called MD underscore safe zone. That's how it knows what to fit to. So in this background file, if you had created your own rectangles and you didn't have one called MD safe zone, let's just rename this real quick as, okay, so if I saved this now, so there's nothing any longer in here that's called MD safe zone. Okay, now if I go back here and let's go ahead and get rid of some stuff. Didn't mean to shrink it. All right, move that to there. Okay, so now I've got this one. If I hit the add background button, because the MD safe zone doesn't exist, it brings it in. It's going to import that file. Let's see, it's 59.37. I'm guessing in this file, it's 59.37. So that's how big it is in this file. If you don't have an MD safe zone, then it's just going to import the file and not do any sort of auto fitting. Okay. And so if it brings it in like that, obviously it's not in the right spot. So then I would manually have to move it, or, bring it down, resize it, whatever we needed to do in order to get it to fit. So yeah, in order for the background files to work, for the auto size feature, you have to have MD_safe zone. So I'm going to undo. I've now got it back, so I'm going to save. And now that I have that MD_safe zone again, as soon as I bring it back in, it's going to auto fit into that rectangle. So now with this button, you've also got the ability to hold Control Shift or Control and Shift to bring in different versions. So if we look back at those versions here, I've got a BK-control, and each of these also has a vertical version as well. So we've got Control, Control Shift, and Control underscore, or sorry, and shift, just Shift. So if we look at any one of these ones, and I'll just hit V to go to wireframe, you'll see that my safe zone is way up here in the corner. And then I've got all of this other space around here. So if I come in and grab this and hold Shift and hit the button, it's going to resize that so that it's just fitting right there inside that corner, and then everywhere else there's space. So it doesn't make a whole lot of sense with just a blue background and the word shift. Again, those are just placeholders. The idea for that is that you could have different either views or different wording, or maybe a cemetery background, or whatever the case may be, to give you options so that you can have more options as far as your import, quick import anyway, for your backgrounds goes. So hopefully that makes sense on how those work. But yeah, the main important thing is that you've got a safe zone set, and also that you're on the latest. Right now it's still in beta, but the latest version of MemorialDESIGNER, which is going to look different than in the past. In the past, there was a 1.375.1 or .6 for your version number. But now the version number tells us when it was created. So you'll see a different version number like this. And if that's the case, then you're on the latest version. So any other questions on that, John? And then Derek, you also said that you had something that you wanted to cover, I think. Do you want to chat that, or do you want to jump onto voice?
I'll get on voice.
Okay.
This is gonna, should I share screens for this?
If you want to share your screen, I can stop sharing mine.
Let me shrink this down first. And I was just dealing with this file, so I'll open this up. All right, now the steps I went through with this are because there was already a stone on the lot. It already had some artwork on it. So I'm trying to scale it.
See anything yet, Derek?
Oh. Start video.
There should be a little green button kind of in the middle of all your stuff that says share screen. And then when you click on that, you'll choose what screen to share.
Share screen. All right, here we go. All right, so you can,
I can see it now.
Okay. Now you showed earlier about using the add perspective tool. right?
Okay.
So add perspective. And let's just, for the sake of time, let's just say I've done a little adjusting to it, right? Because I've already finished this and all that. Now, what I would do is I would have the actual shape that I'm trying to get it into. I activate transparency for the reason that it helps you kind of more clearly see what you're doing. Now, here is where it gets a little strange as to what is happening. Go down to shape. Intersect with this, right? Now, assuming that bitmap matched perfectly was what you're wanting to do, here's something strange. I turned on wireframe. Well, it's not showing it right now, but you can see how this does not, it does not close. It's acting as if there was this hole here. Oh, I had this shape on here twice. Anyhow, you can see what has happened here. It's only created shape on the inside of this, on half of it.
Okay.
Now, my problem now is that I can't modify the nodes the same way. However, I could still keep adjusting the perspective.
Yeah, it's weird. So the steps that you're taking aren't ones that I've taken before. My suggestion would be, do you think you're going to still need to adjust the perspective, or you'll be done adjusting perspective at that point?
Well, I've already dealt with it on this file, and what I did is I just copied back and forth through Corel Paint till eventually it was right, and it only took a few minutes. I just thought it was really strange that it was creating the shape for only half of the object.
Yeah, no, I'd agree. I mean, it looks kind of like a bug to me,
Yeah.
in CorelDRAW. And it probably has to do with, because that perspective exists. So what I would do, if you want to follow the same steps, and this is just a suggestion, after you've created your perspective, if you go up to bitmaps on the top,
Mhm.
and click convert to bitmap, it's the very top one. And then you would, usually since you're on screen, you don't have to have such high resolution. I normally just drop that down and just click OK. And that'll then turn it into a bitmap, which loses the interactive portion of it, as far as it being, having the perspective added to it.
Yes.
So then if you retry those same steps, see if it does the same thing. But that would just be a suggestion. I don't know if it would or not, but
Well, we can find out here. No, it closes it.
yeah. So I mean, it's just a guess that it's because of that, effect on there. It's probably just not. I don't know. I don't know the coding behind it, but
Well, that's a solution for now, so I'm
yeah,
satisfied. Thank you.
that skips you from having to go in and out of photo paint as well, because you can just do the bitmap conversion right there inside of CorelDRAW.
Mhm.
And I
Yeah,
do that quite
that's
a bit if I'm, if I've got a bitmap that I want to kind of freeze in a certain state. If I've got things applied to it, I'll just convert it to a bitmap again. Even though it is a bitmap, it kind of seems redundant, right? You're converting a bitmap to a bitmap. But by doing that, you're basically flattening all of those effects and just making it so that there are no effects applied to it anymore.
Yeah, I think it originally was treating it as though it was a vector, but it had visible qualities of a bitmap and whatever issue is going on. I just thought it was strange. It was only keeping half of the object.
Yeah, yeah.
Now, when I looked at it visually, it would look right. But when I looked at the amount of space the object took up, as if I added a background,
Right.
it would still act as though the rest of that bitmap was still there, even the parts that weren't visible.
Yep.
And I couldn't get them to go away.
Absolutely. Well, hopefully that helps.
Yeah, I think that'll solve it. Thank you.
Yeah, no problem. Anything else on your end that you want to cover while you're on there?
No, that's it.
Okay, cool. And I mean, if I can duplicate those steps and duplicate the error on my side, then I can also send it to Corel as a bug, file a bug report with them, and they can take a look at it and see if they can, do anything about it or fix it. But that would definitely be it's just native to Corel kind of thing that I wouldn't have any control over. So I'd send it off to them.
Well, that's it.
All right, awesome. John, did you have anything else? Did I answer the questions on the backgrounds for you well enough, or do we still need to cover some stuff on that? While I'm waiting for that, go ahead and stop your sharing, Derek, and I'm going to start sharing again on my end. I remember how. Here we go. Hold on just a second. Okay, so I'm going to share my screen again. Okay, so one of the questions that I've received recently is something has happened to the workspace, like either the toolbar isn't there, or maybe this top toolbar isn't there. Something looks weird. There's all sorts of things that can happen to a workspace, I guess, or maybe you switch workspaces altogether. So what I'm going to do is show you really quick how to switch workspaces and how to get things back to normal if they end up changing. So by default, when Memorial Designer installs, it puts a workspace in here that if we go to Window, Workspace, Other, is called Memorial Designer, whatever version Pro. So that's the default workspace. But if something happens to it, maybe you switch to the default workspace by accident, okay? And so by switching to the default workspace, we'll give it just a second here to do that. Things are going to look different because all of the Memorial Designer buttons are gone, but there still might be the, Dockers over here, perhaps. Because if you go to Window, Dockers, Memorial Designer, they're still available inside this workspace. But it looks different, right? And a lot of the other buttons have disappeared as well. So if that happens and things aren't looking correct, it's more than likely a workspace issue. So we go to Window, Workspace, Other. This is the first thing you look for, is which workspace is the one that's checked, that has the black circle or checkbox or whatever the case may be. So we're going to click on this one again, and it's going to take us back into the Memorial Designer Pro workspace. And now everything's the way that it should be. But let's say one of these bars disappears, which I don't know how it happens, because I just don't know, because it has happened lately to quite a few people, but I don't know what the deal is, why it's happening. But if you want to get things back, any of the blank areas of these toolbars, if you right click instead of left click, it's going to pop up a menu where it shows the toolbars that are available already. So there are some that Corel has as default, not default, but as available toolbars that you can select. And if you do, they'll usually pop up, either floating or they'll pop up in a specific location. But now that toolbar shows up because I selected it. If I click on this X, it's going to close it back out. It's not gone forever, it's just hiding it. So if I right click a blank section, you'll see it's there again. So sometimes the menu bar disappears all of a sudden, and now we don't have a menu bar, so we can't see file and edit and object and those kind of things. So not to fret, if you just right click, make sure that it's checked, and then it should pop back up. And the menu bar in the Memorial Designer workspace is a little bit different because we've added the Memorial Designer heading or section here, which is specifically for opening up the Dockers over here on the right. But just in case anything happens, sometimes people lose their tools over here. Again, that one is called the toolbox. So if that one disappears, you'll know where that one went. This toolbar here, the property bar, that's what that one's called. So if you lose that, that's what that one's called. The status bar is the one along the bottom. So if we uncheck that, you'll see that that disappears. If we uncheck the standard toolbar, it's going to get rid of all those buttons up there. And then we're left with the project timer, which I usually have. Depending on screen resolution, on setups, if there's not enough resolution on your screen, I will remove the project timer just because it is one that takes up space. And then this one is our Memorial Designer toolbar. And now I don't have anywhere else to right click, so I'm gonna have to do it up here. Right click, menu bar. Now that's gone. And now I don't know how I'm gonna get anything back. Now they're all gone. Now I'm host. Yes, up here in the corner I can still click, so that's good. Okay, so that's where all of those reside and exist, just in case you ever lose anything. If for some reason the bars are there, but the icons are messed up, then that usually means that your workspace itself has become corrupted, in which case you'd need to reinstall the workspace. And let's see, I think that's all I usually have there. Project timer, that's the next one. Okay, so those are the ones that I usually have available. Okay, any questions on that? I think that hopefully explains how those work. Well, I think as far as today, wait, there was one other thing that's, give me just a second to look this up. Okay, I'm gonna load this one up. Just a second here. All right, so I'm going to load up this design here. So in this particular design, he tried to make some changes to the way that the leaves looked and the way that the scroll and stuff was. And so the question was, how do you get the left-hand side and the right-hand side to be mirrors or, you know, exact opposites of each other? Because if we zoom out here, I mean, you can see it looks like over here, this is a little bit thicker. This is a little bit thinner. We've got this, how that rounds a little bit, and this over on this side doesn't round. And then the curve of the actual, I'm gonna go out of, let's go to grayscale here real quick. So the curve of the panel itself is slightly different from the left to the right. And so the question was, how do you basically get both sides to be equal? Most of the time, what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this design, okay, and just because I find it easier, I'm going to make a copy. So I'm holding control while dragging over here to the right, and I'll right click, and then I'll let go of my left click, and that's going to make a copy of that over here, okay? And then the text itself, I'm going to get rid of all the text portion, the text pieces, like this. And if we look at this design, everything is going to be symmetrical, or everything's going to be the same on either side, except for these rings. That's the troublesome area, because the rings are currently connected to the panel. And so what I would do is I would actually break this apart and not have it connect to the panel anymore. In order to do that, I would need to come in here with the shape tool and break apart at this node. So I'm just going to right click and I say break apart, and I'll do the same thing over here, right click and break apart. And what that does is it takes that single node and breaks it apart into two different nodes. Okay. And that should be the only thing that I need to do to separate that, other than I need to now break that apart from the rest of the curve. And in order to do that, I come up to object and hit break curve apart, or just hit Control K. And now it will break the curve apart wherever it's broken, wherever there's, you know, two nodes basically that aren't connected. And so now this piece is separated from the rest of it. So it took two steps. I had to break it apart at the nodes, and I had to then break it apart from the rest of the curve. I didn't have to break it apart at the nodes. I could have just deleted a chunk. So instead of breaking apart at the nodes, I could have selected an area like this and hit delete. But the reason I didn't do that is it's going to delete a really big chunk that I wanted to keep. And so I just decided it would be better to break it apart at those nodes there. So I'm gonna have to do this over. So I'll break it apart, and then hit Control K to break the whole thing apart. And now I've got it separated and by itself. So then what I would do is I'd take this piece, the rings, okay, and I'd move it out of the way so that it's separate and by itself. And I would usually then finish up those rings. So if I grab both of these nodes, I can use the join Docker over here, and I'm going to do a Bezier curve with a larger gap tolerance. And you'll notice as I get that gap tolerance bigger, it's going to give me a blue line showing how it joins that. So as soon as it's big enough, I'll just hit apply, and it's going to then create that line for me to close that up. Okay. Okay, so I've got that, and then what I would, you know, I don't even need to, I don't need to do anything with that really, because what we're going to do is we're going to cut this in half. So most of the time what I do is I'll grab this and I'll combine it all together. Right now it's a group, so I need to ungroup it first and then combine it so it becomes a single object. Then I'm going to use another object as a reference. Okay, so I'm just drawing a rectangle, and I'm going to take that rectangle and throw it right here at that node. And then I'll make sure that it's that big, okay? And if I shift select this, I can do a trim, and that's going to cut away everything that, that I don't need over there on the right-hand side. So now I've just got these pieces over here. If I want to say if I join these together first, it might work a little different too. So let's try that again. Yeah, so you would notice before, maybe you noticed before that there was a line that connected those. I didn't really want that to happen. So I closed my curve first, which then makes it work this way. So now I've got this left-hand side the way that I want it. Actually, I'm gonna back that up because I think it was the right-hand side that he wanted. So I'll just take this and move it over this direction. And I just want to make sure that it's covering the scroll completely. So I'll shift select this and trim it out. And now I've got the one over there on the right, the way that I want it. Okay. Then what I would do is I'd take this and grabbing over here on the right, I would drag it over to the left, but I'll hold control while I do that, which then makes it the exact same size. And I will right click while I do that, which makes a copy. So now I've got a copy of the original, but it's mirrored basically right on that left-hand edge. It's mirrored on that left-hand edge because I was grabbing it from the right-hand edge and pulling it over. And then what I would do is I'd take that one and this one, shift, select them both and weld. And then it's going to weld and get rid of those center lines for me right there. So I don't have those center lines anymore. And I really don't need those nodes. So I would come in here and clean that up and just get rid of the nodes. Not that it matters too much, but I'd get rid of them anyway. And now I've got this the way that I want it. It's now exactly the same on either side. I'd hit fill grayscale. What that does is it's going to break everything apart and then only combine these inside pieces, turn them 10% gray, and then give us just a black outline. That way it's going to fill correctly with the granite fills. And then I'd take this one and bring it back. Okay, so I will fill grayscale on this one as well. Something didn't work right there, so let's see what happened. That work. There's gotta be something wrong with this design. So let's see if there's maybe an open spot. I'm gonna click find open shapes. No, there's no open shapes. That's really weird though. Looks like maybe there's duplicates. There's duplicated objects. So we're going to erase those duplicates. So I'm going to select that and hit remove duplicates here. Because there are 2 duplicated objects, 6 overlapping objects. So something is really messed up with this design. Let's see what's going on here. Interesting. They're not exact. We'll remove let's do this. Let's take out all the color. Okay. I can see visually that this one is actually a little bit thicker, so that one looks duplicated. This one looks duplicated. Not sure why those were duplicated, but let's get rid of them. Something there, that's odd. Okay, so we'll try this again. Remove duplicates. No duplicates. So we'll try hitting fill grayscale again. That looks better. So that's the way that it's supposed to work. And then I'd usually knock this out. So I'd knock that out and knock that out and hit escape to end my knockout. So now I've got my rings again. And I can just position them back to where I want them, hit shift page up to bring them to the front, and I will just overlap this the way that it was before. But because they're now separated, it's going to make it much easier for us to reuse this or pull this out and put in something else or whatever the case may be. So I like to have my designs separated like that as much as possible anyway. I would more than likely actually separate out the flowers too and just have them an overlapping object. I won't do that in this case, but if I were to be designing this myself, I would probably have it in those different pieces myself. So then what we're going to need to do is delete the original here. And it doesn't seem to be combined at all, so I'll just come through and just kind of keep clicking, or I can swipe like this, and then holding shift, I can click on the stuff I want to keep, which is the text, and then I'll hit delete and get it out of the way. Looks like I missed some text, so it looks like this text is broken up too, so we'll talk about that here as well. Okay, so now we've got our design, and I'm simply, if I want to make sure it all works and goes correctly, I would just group it together first, Control G to group, hold shift, select the stone, hit C to center, and then shift page down to move it to the back. Then I need to hit the stone and hit shift page down to move that to the back. And now it should be where it was before. But like I said, this text here has actually been broken apart, which most of the time people break stuff apart so that they can individually move, you know, pieces around. That is not necessary. You can actually have your text combined together and still move the pieces around if you use the shape tool to do it. So if that needed to be adjusted at all, you can just grab the shape tool and move stuff like this if you needed to. And it still maintains it as one line of text so that it's, you can select it all and change that name if you needed to, you know, to Heather or something. So that's what I would do to get the right-hand side and the left-hand side to match each other, is simply work on one side of it, combine it, flip it, weld it. That's usually the steps that I take in order to get that to work. Any questions on that? Back here. Nope. All right. Well, I think that's all I had to cover today, were those things. So thank you for coming, and we will see you next week.